The SmorgShow Radio Show.
Hello, everybody. Deep in the bowels of the man cave.
Hello, everybody.
We are sequestered.
We interrupt your global pandemic to bring you some listening enjoyment today.
I certainly hope we can entertain somebody out there that's in desperate need of some social interaction. We're just the people to bring it to you.
Well, they must be pretty desperate if this is where they came to find it. No, I'm kidding.
These are desperate times, Allie, you know? You're trying to find something different, and people always want to tune to the SmorgShow Podcast to find out the real scoop of what's going on out there.
This is your most trusted news source right here.
That's right. Hello there.
Wow, there's a whole world out there right now.
There is, and we don't know anything about it.
Yeah, so...
Well, I'm going to switch over to the lounge. So
all right,
keep entertaining.
Sounds good. My mic is... There we go. I thought I was muted for a second. Yeah, so we...
Yeah, okay. Hello.
Wow, that's the most you've walked in a week. No, I'm kidding.
How about it?
Right. Yeah, so it's weird. I feel like March was the longest month ever. Like, you know, I think back to like when kind of all of this happened, when the shelter in place announcement, like when that happened, and it's like it feels like it's been 2 months of this, but it's like, wow, that was like middle of March. Like we haven't even really hit a month quite yet. Or maybe it's been about a month, but it's like life is just at a slower pace, which is maybe a good thing, you know, because I think there's a lot of upsides to a lot of this, but it's interesting.
Yeah, I want to get into that. I want to talk a little bit about that. So I guess we kind of just threw ourselves into the show without any proper introduction. I think I'm just off kilter altogether. This is the Smorgasbord Radio Show, the SmorgShow Podcast, as we call it, and I'm Chris.
I'm Allie.
Father-daughter team here. We've been doing this for 10 years, and we have never experienced what we're doing now. This is episode 114, recorded in April 2020. This is not the way I thought the year was going to start, or the decade was going to start. It's been very interesting.
Yeah, how about it?
We haven't really done anything for a month, as Allie said. What did we got locked down when? March 20th or something like that, right? It was like right after St. Patrick's Day. It started a little earlier. We had your birthday at the start of March, and that was the last time I was actually out in a real restaurant.
Yeah, well, and yeah, what's weird is beginning of March was when there still was a little bit of people were panicking, but most of the country, I guess most of the country, because other countries were affected by it by this point. But for us, at least, it's like, oh man, like, you know, people are really not wanting to leave their house. Like they're really freaking out. Like, okay, whatever. Like, you know, it was still kind of this, you know, a lot of people weren't really worried about it and just went about their lives. And I actually I was in New York the first week of March.
That's right.
Right after my birthday weekend, I had this trip to New York planned with a couple of friends. And so I was there for like 3 or 4 days. And I want to say that it was that weekend that it was like, okay, like we're starting to hear a little bit more of it. And actually the week that I was in New York was when the first case of coronavirus arrived in Manhattan. Like they had reported the first case the week that we were there. It's like, oh wow, it's now it's here, you know, but it was still kind of this like, oh, it's just one guy and it's going to be over with. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah, how quickly things change, because I was not even the least concerned for you when you were out there and I had heard that the first virus case had broken out in New York. And I was just thinking, okay, well, this is just more media hype and something to scare everybody. I didn't really think of anything related to your safety.
Right.
But quickly after that, things really ramped up.
Yeah, and I want to say it was the weekend after I got back from New York that like the first restaurant, or when they announced that restaurants were going to close. So it was something happened within, yeah, it was like, honestly, the trip couldn't have happened at, like, that was probably the last like possible week where it wasn't this concern. I don't know, like,
yeah.
So it
You
was
timed that one right.
I didn't even know when I booked the trip that we were going to be facing this kind of stuff. But yeah, so it's weird. There was this attitude shift within just a week or so after that,
Uh-huh. And you were actually all ready to start your new job the week after you got back from New York. So I think you were at that for about a week, right? Before
literally a week. Yeah.
And what's your job? You want to tell us a little bit about what you landed now after school?
Yeah. So I am teaching early childhood music classes at a school. And so in the mornings I'm doing those classes, and then afternoons I'm doing teaching private music lessons. And so this was my first, like I had done training for like towards the end of February. And then when I was in New York, and the plan was when I got back, that I would start that Monday. And so it was Monday I started, and it was like, yeah, Monday through Thursday was normal. Friday was the day that the school announced that we're closing. So I didn't even get to see my Friday families. And all of a sudden it was like, wow, I barely got a week of an official teacher with my own classes here. And it was like, then it all kind of changed from there. And it was like this panic of like, oh no, I just started this job, and now like we can't do classes anymore and all this stuff. But it's kind of turned into this interesting thing that I don't think would have, because what we're doing now is we've had to do a lot of, like most companies, I think right now, I've had to do a lot of creative brainstorming of like, okay, how are we going to make this work? How is it possible to move this virtually?
Yeah.
And we created a Vimeo channel with all of these really fun, like cute videos for the kids, where we've got this playlist of music that we send the families on Spotify. They've got this playlist. And so what we've been doing is creating these fun videos to that go along with those songs, and we make them interactive, and we're doing Zoom classes, and it's all this stuff, and all the media stuff that I studied in school along with music, like has all kind of paired really well with all of this. And it's like we've kind of revamped our, like, this small music, what's it called? I guess our small business.
Yeah.
With introducing this whole online platform as another service to offer. Anyway, it's just really cool to see it all kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah, new business models.
Yes, that's the word.
Are born out of these situations where things that just I can't think of a good example right now, but just things that have to be reworked just because of the natural circumstances of a business.
Yeah.
And so you've been doing these classes. I've been hearing you, because I've been working from home for about 7 years, so nothing has really changed for me directly for working. So I haven't had to think about different ways of doing things, but I've been hearing you do your music classes next door from my office, my home office, and you're just singing along with the kids, and it's you seem to be it seems to be working for you. And
it sounds you're not used to hearing on a regular basis. So, but it's just cool because I'm doing the FaceTime private lessons for my older students in the afternoons too, and it's like, wow, like this is something I never really tried out, and I could see this as, even after this is all over, as, oh, if I've got a student who's sick or someone missed a class, like they have those tools online, or we can schedule a virtual lesson or whatever. So it's just, you're having to come up with stuff that you wouldn't normally be coming up with if things were just normal routine.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to do something here that I've been actually fantasizing about for many years. It was like, Dave and Jerry, the other co-hosts of the show that come in every now and then, we have to wait to do our show until we can get them all out here. And it's kind of far drive. Dave has to drive out here, probably like a 40-minute drive. Jerry has to get on a train to get out here. So the time that we spend actually together is very rare. We might be able to do 3 or 4 shows in a year. And I've been wanting to say, we need to make something happen. We need to give you a microphone. We need to do this remotely. And it's just amazing through this whole coronavirus thing that everybody's been using this Zoom software, which has been fantastic. So for the first time ever, we're going to do something remote here. Dave Jackson, I think you're out there.
I'm out there. Can you?
Oh, he's out there.
I hear you. You're a little weak. Hey, you look great.
Thank you.
Could you talk?
Yeah, I've got an external mic in, so I just wanted to. I didn't know you were going to be already podcasting here because I wanted to check a few things technically, but if you can hear me,
Well,
maybe we don't have to.
You do sound a little faint. So what we're going to do is just hang on a little minute. Allie and I will wrap up things. We're going to go to a segment, maybe kind of a break, and we'll come back and maybe we'll do some testing before we get you on here. So just hang tight there.
Great.
So it's been a very interesting month, and right now at this point in time, there's no end in sight. So I
There's
don't.
the hope of
There's the hope
of that, and it's one of those where it's hard to. You could drive yourself insane with reading stuff all day. It's one of those where okay, it's great to stay informed with stuff, but I mean, I don't think it's healthy to just. There was a time when people wouldn't get notified every 2 seconds. Like when news would come up, like people would just wait for the paper or whatever, and that there's like that healthy distance. I feel like there's not really that. It's hard to distance yourself from just this bombardment of news. Like if you've got an Apple Watch and your wrist is vibrating every 4 seconds, or like your phone, it's just, you're constantly immersed in it. I don't think we were meant to constantly consume that stressful.
Yeah.
I don't know. Especially everything's stressful when it's coming at you like that. But it's just it's nice to take those moments where you go outside and get some fresh air and not consume that all the time.
Yeah, I've noticed that with even talking with my own mom, who really has nothing else to do except sit and watch the news all day long. And it's like, I could just tell the conversations that she needs to get away from it, because I find it difficult to actually give her a call to talk, because I just know that that's the only topic on her mind. It's like, I really don't want to even subject myself to it in a conversation. So I've been trying to purposely avoid it as much as possible, but I still come in contact with people that's all they're thinking about. So
Yeah.
it's difficult. And like to your point, being bombarded, I've been trying to turn off my alerts. I don't want to look at things throughout the day. I'm fortunate enough to be able to still work and focus on something from, 8 to 4 or something before getting back into it. But
yeah, but it's you got to be careful too, because there are some graphs or charts I've seen where you have to really be careful with how they're presenting the data, where they're getting it from, because for example, like New York and New Jersey had the worst numbers out of the whole country, and if that's the only spot where that they're grabbing data from in order to predict the projected numbers for the, here's all the cases we're going to be expecting to seeing this week, like based on New York's data. It's like, well, that's not an accurate projection of the entire country. So it's like you have to be careful with how it's presented, and
the modeling and all that.
And it's like it's okay to take precautions and to be naturally cautious, but I think it shouldn't be this consuming fear. Then it's
yeah. I was trying to think about how to do this episode, because I don't want to go down a path of exactly what we just talked about, where we're talking about all this just negative.
Yeah, of course.
I wanted to kind of keep it light. I wanted to talk about some of the lifestyle changes that we've all had to make, some of the things that we're, experiencing, shopping trends, things that I'm finding that are left over in the stores, like even in a global pandemic or an apocalypse, people are still not drinking Aquafina water. It's like left behind. I want to keep it light, but in a few minutes, we're going to switch over to Dave and Jerry. And, Jerry has got a new title on the show. He is our chief conspiracy correspondent and social justice warrior expert. And I'm sure he's going to come to the table with a perspective. I'm sure Dave's got a perspective. So
he studies contemporary human behavior.
He does. And it's very easy to do when you've got a lot of time on your hands. Jerry has been, he hasn't been officially furloughed, but he is not working until at least the end of April. And I would imagine that's going to be extended, but we haven't received an official announcement. It's going past April 30th, but I wouldn't be surprised. Anyway, let's take a break here. I did hear from Baba a few weeks ago, right after the prime minister there totally locked down the country. 1.3 billion people got notice, like 3 hours notice that you're not allowed to even leave your house.
Get what you need from the store.
Yeah, it was an absolute madhouse. It was worse than it was here because they had literally 3 hours.
Wow.
And they're on strict lockdown where they can't leave their houses. They can go straight to it. They can go to a store, but they have to come back. They can't walk around. They can't visit family. I work with a company who does a lot of outsourcing, and they support our operations. And it's been nuts because they've all had to work from home, and not all the homes have internet. Mm-hmm. And the ones that do have internet, it might be like dial-up or DSL at the best. And so the quality, the speed that they can do things has been diminished.
Yeah. We've
lost about 30% of our staff because they're just in areas where there's just no development. They don't have internet. So it's been tough. Also, our company does a lot of retail data collection, and people have to go into stores to take images of pictures of products. They're not getting into the stores, so we're not able to get critical data for our business. So it's been...
it's a ripple effect.
It really is.
It affects everybody.
So anyway, we're talking about Baba. He did actually, he muscled his way through our recording, and he did give us a news update. So what we're going to do is I think we're going to go to that. And then hopefully after that's over, we will come back and have Dave and Jerry live on the show, and we'll see how that goes.
All right. Sounds good.
Baba News, live from Punjab. This is your International News Correspondent, Baba Gonesh, in complete lockdown since Prime Minister Modi locked us down on March 24th. Monkeys run riot as they reclaim the streets amid COVID-19 lockdown in India. Hundreds of monkeys have taken over the streets around India's presidential palace, leading an animal offensive, taking advantage of deserted streets as the country remains under a coronavirus lockdown. With India's 1.3 billion population and tens of millions of cars conspicuous by their absence, stray domestic animals and wildlife has moved to fill the void, while also suffering from the pandemic fallout. In the financial capital, Mumbai, peacocks have been seen perched on top of parked cars, displaying their spectacular trains. In Delhi, troops of monkeys now scamper over the walls of the Rashtrapati Bhawan presidential compound, past military guards and into the grounds of ministries and other official buildings. They are stealing a lot more, but not yet threatening humans, said one officer on duty at the palace entrance. The rhesus macaque monkeys, who often snatch food from shoppers' bags, have been a long problem in the capital, but there have been reports of some getting into office buildings during the lockdown. Other animals have also been emboldened by the coronavirus restrictions on humans, who are only allowed out for food and essential items. A Himalayan black bear last week wandered into Gangtok, capital of northeastern state of Sikkim, entering a telecoms office and injuring an engineer, media reported. Indian Forest Service officers, meanwhile, have shared videos on social media of elephants trundling past shuttered shops along deserted streets. But the lockdown has also been deadly for some animals. 4 horses, normally employed for tourist carriage rides near Kolkata's landmark Victoria Memorial, have died from starvation in recent days, animal rights activists have said. Some 115 horses, which make their living pulling carriages bedecked with flowers and balloons, were left to fend for themselves after the government ordered the shutdown. Shushmita Roy, spokesman for the Love and Care for Animals group, said, "They are becoming sick. We fear many more will die in coming days if they do not get food," she said. The owners of the carriages say they have no money for the horses after being ordered off the streets. "We are finding it difficult to feed our family. How can we feed our horses?" said one owner, Sunny. India's army of stray cows and dogs have also found new freedom to take over city intersections and forage in waste bins. But even those scraps have disappeared as restaurants and shops have closed. This is Breaking Baba News with Baba on lockdown.
All right, we are back. Joining us via Zoom, we have Dave Jackson, former co-host of the Chris and Dave Smorgasbord radio show. Welcome back, Dave.
Hello there.
Jerry Malauskas, chief conspiracy correspondent, and our social justice warrior expert. Man, that's a mouthful.
you telling me? Yeah.
See, so we started the show off earlier, and we were just, Allie and I were just casually just talking about how the whole thing has disrupted our lives and what we're trying to do. And we're trying to keep it kind of on the down low. Just, we're not experts. We're not medical experts, but we're a bunch of people that are just kind of questioning what's going on. And I'm sure there's many different theories, and I'm okay with discussing those theories here. It's not anything official here to tell people to live their lives differently than what we're saying. I don't know. I'm just questioning a lot of things. Where do you want to start?
Well, you want to go with the CCC? you know me.
What does the CCC have to say about all this?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of things to talk about in this regard. What if I were to focus on anything, and again, not trying to get too heavy, but just let's forget it for a moment about the initial discomfort, the initial problems that we're having with this. And I think maybe we should be kind of also looking at what the aftermath of this is going to be. Or maybe even more specifically, what's going to be happening as the weeks go on if the situation that we're dealing with, the quarantine, lockdown, whatever term you want to use, stays in place. And I think what President Trump said about that the cure can be worse than the actual disease it's trying to cure. I forget. I'm paraphrasing what he said.
Yeah.
I think there's something to that. I think the psychological damage that can happen, and this can manifest in different things that could be anywhere from suicide to domestic abuse to other issues of that nature. The other thing too, I'm also wondering, because actually I had a physical coming up that I was supposed to do. I kept postponing it. I can't do that now because a lot of the medical places are closed.
Right.
So people have chronic problems.
All the elective
Emergencies
surgeries and yeah.
Exactly. Oh, so, I mean, I don't know, unless it's emergency surgery. Yeah, you can't do it right now. So these are, I think, questions that we could be addressing going forward, because these are things we're going to have to deal with outside of like I said, the immediate, I can only go out to exercise, I can only go out and get food or whatever. That's been established, that's done. We know how to deal with that. But what are we going to be dealing with forward? And when this thing lifts, how are we going to deal with the economic fallout of this? I think we all kind of may have different ideas on it. Being that I am the chief conspiracy correspondent, I have a somewhat dim outlook. I think it's not going to be that good, but I know, Chris, you think that we can probably rebound back pretty quickly, and maybe we do have what's necessary to do that, but I just don't know. So that's something, another question mark that we're going to have to be dealing with.
I think. Oh, go ahead, Allie.
I was going to say that I wonder, like, when this is lifted, how long is it going to be before we recover from that? Because even when we're still going to be able to go to public spaces right now, like, we can still go to grocery stores, but there's very much that, like, okay, you don't trust anybody, like anyone's a suspect kind of a thing. And like, when this is lifted, how long is it going to take for us to leave that mindset that even when people say, oh, it's safe to go out, there's still going to be this like, oh, well, I don't know. Like, I want to keep my distance and I don't trust you. And there's just that, it's a terrible feeling, I don't know, to keep your distance because you don't trust someone. And even when the official, like, ban to go out is over, like, I don't know. I don't think you can just all of a sudden get rid of the mindset that we've been in.
Yeah, I just notice when I go down the aisle, grocery store, or even on the street, there's this look that somebody's just looking at you differently. Mm-hmm. Like, well, on the sidewalk, we're walking outside at night, I'll actually see people cross the street before they even get to me.
And they did that before, but
I'm noticing it more now. Or just walking past somebody in a grocery store, somebody just turns their head away from you.
Yeah. Or I find myself like holding my breath. It's like, oh, what am I doing?
Breath.
I feel like, yeah.
Yeah. How long is that going to go back?
Well, and
that's why I go out of my way to talk to people even more than I would have normally.
Yeah.
And I've been having more positive than negative experiences with that because people are just so afraid right now.
Yeah.
That I think when you reach out to somebody that you don't know, I think a lot of people are really appreciating that. But there are the people that are really paranoid. Well, forget them.
Right.
Else.
Well, and if handshakes weren't dying out already, they're going to be dead after this.
Yeah, I think the handshake thing is going to take a while to come back.
But I do see the other side of this though too. That like it almost seemed like we needed. I mean, the country has been so polarized and so divided that it's like I don't know. Like we just were kind of talking about how, wow, we almost need like this huge thing to happen that forces people to just, I don't know, like reflect and slow down and for things to shake, like for something to shake things up so much that like it brings people together. And I don't know, in a weird way, I feel like that this has done that where you're always going to get people that, you know, are just trolls on the internet and say mean things all the time. But for the most part, I have seen a very like positive side to this whole thing where, you know, it is this kind of, it's forcing us to like for slowing us down. Anytime routine is disrupted, I think it like, you know, makes us reflect on a lot of things. And I don't know, it's like we're now making this effort to connect with people in all these creative ways so that we can still have, you know, you can't take the humanity out of it, even if we can't all gather together in person. And I just feel like when this is all over, restaurants are going to be packed and like people aren't going to take for granted, like all of their, you know, friend groups and everything. And I don't know, there is that side of it that I'm seeing too.
Yeah.
I do think there's a pent up demand that will come back. Now, to Jerry's point, I don't think we can go on, you know, 2, 3, 4 months and expect a rebound. But I do think that if this thing does start to get lifted in May, I think we're gonna weather through this just fine. People that were furloughed will be brought back. I don't think these were jobs that were permanently lost because of a true economic issue, underlying economic issue. It's the economy is extremely strong. This is economic suicide is what we're doing. This is self-imposed.
But I think it's going to spike back up quickly.
It should, unless it does continue on. And then there are going to be some businesses that just don't naturally go back. Some restaurants are going to fold, but they'll be replaced by other restaurants. I really feel I have a positive outlook if we can get through this in the next, hopefully 6 weeks. Mm-hmm. Now, Jerry, you got some good news this week, right? You're not furloughed per se, right?
No, I'm not. And I think it's because my boss kind of went to bat for me. And the fact that he said that all the kind of full-time guys, there's 2 full-time like workers, regular workers, and then the 2 bosses. I figured what they were going to do was they were going to cut back and just have the 2 bosses, you know, keep an eye at the library and kind of keep it in a kind of holding pattern until it would look like it was going to come close to opening again. And then they would probably phase me back in at that point. I figure I might be dealing with maybe 1 to 2 months of being on furlough. Because I agree with you. I don't think this thing is something, unless all of like the heads of all the Western nations and all the Western companies have gone completely insane and they want to have a massive depression, they're going to want to come back and have this thing up and running again as soon as they can. So,
well, have you heard yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Have you heard this growing chorus? I think it started maybe Thursday, where just in lockstep, if you went across the media, and I've heard montages put together, it's like, okay, the memo for the day that they all had to go off of was, we're going to push the 18-month narrative. We can't open up for 18 months because they're like saying, okay, we need a vaccine. Okay. How do you think anybody is going to survive 18 months under these conditions? We won't have a country left in 18 months.
Yeah.
That's true too. I mean, the thing, whoever's pushing that narrative is obviously, I think, somebody who's very much with the whole, we need it. Yeah, the vaccine thing, pushing a vaccine aspect to this. And I think when we had the swine flu, and which by the way, we didn't do anything to shut down there, and we lost about 13,000 people in that particular epidemic, and 60 million people got infected.
Right.
Is that worldwide or nationwide?
U.S.
No, just U.S.
Oh,
That's just U.S.
yeah.
Which is amazing.
So,
wow.
I mean, you could imagine how many people across the world, it may have been over 1 billion people across the world, probably got the swine flu. And the deaths, I think, ended up being around, that one I can't give you. I'd have to go like the CDC or maybe Worldometer might have something like that. But the point is, a lot of deaths came out of this, that particular epidemic or pandemic.
Well, and it's the difference is just how it's treated, how it's portrayed,
how it's politicized, whatever. I don't remember really any coverage from the swine flu really back then. I'm tapping my brain thinking, all right, what happened back then? What happened? I cannot remember. No, it wasn't talked about.
This kind of media frenzy. I don't see it. I just didn't see it.
And it's like, okay, and then they say, well, this is, we need a vaccine. You can't, the flu, at least we have a vaccine. Well, all right. We're going to have 60,000 deaths from the flu this year. And that's with a vaccine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And we've had, what is it? How many deaths has it been for coronavirus then?
I think we're up to about 10, 14, something like that.
In just the U.S. Because I think it's like 60,000 worldwide.
Worldwide.
Well, yeah. No, actually,
it might be 100,000.
I've been checking.
Oh, it's gonna.
When I checked Worldometer a day or two ago, it was around 90-something thousand worldwide.
Yeah, I thought it was getting close to 100.
In this country, we represent a pretty big chunk of the deaths in the sense, the top three is ourselves, Italy, and Spain are kind of the three hotspots. And Italy still has more than we do, and they had about 18,500. I'm rounding these figures. So we were just behind that. So we're about 18,000. But again, all viruses have their cycle. And once that cycle has hit its peak and comes back down.
That's why I'm hoping.
See, that's what I'm. Yeah. I'd like to talk about the whole flattening the curve and talking about how we think the social distancing is actually the reason why the curve is flattening. I don't know if there's really any scientific proof. Now, maybe I'm wrong about this. I'm just going to preface that, but I don't think you can make a statement that says that there's a direct causal relationship between what we're doing now and the fact that we're starting to see the curve get flattened. Because was there ever a control group of a place that was in complete lockdown versus one that had complete open society?
Well, you know what? We do have that. We do. Sweden is not on lockdown at all.
So I guess what I'm saying is, are there other variables that would cause a virus to spike and come down, like either seasonality, right, or just the natural, like you said, the cycle?
It's April. That's the end of the season.
Right.
Right.
So, the people that were spitting these high numbers, originally it was going to be 2.2 million, and then it came back to 100 to 240, and now it was 80 and then 60, and maybe it's going to be less than 60. Now they're all saying, the numbers were based on no social distancing, and what we're doing is the reason why it's coming down. They're trying to defend the original bad estimates, but to your point earlier, Allie, those models were based on New Jersey, New York as like the sample.
Right, yeah.
And doing nothing.
Projecting the numbers for the rest of the nation.
Yeah.
It's like the one kid in class who who gets in trouble and then everyone's punished. It's like that sort of thing. But
feels like it.
Yeah. I mean, but it's also, I thought I don't remember where I read this or something, but didn't it also have to do with the places that were hit the hardest were on the same like longitudinal line or something?
Yes, I noticed that.
So it also just has to do with the current climate of that geographical location where like the equator, they're not affected at all because like heat wipes this thing out,
Yes, if you looked at Chicago to some degree, I think, but mainly New York, Italy, Spain, China, they're all on the 40-degree
Parallel.
Yeah. So is there something there? Why is California in general weathering the storm pretty well? There's a theory there that this actually hit back in the fall because they have something like San Francisco has like 5,000 to 10,000 Chinese who fly into San Francisco every day. And they weren't on lockdown. So that whole thing about herd immunity, were people building up immunity during the fall that they're able to weather it now?
Oh, yeah.
There are some experts who believe that by doing the lockdown, we're not doing ourselves a favor, but we're actually hurting the situation by not letting the general population build up that herd immunity. So if there should become this thing should come back in any way. By the way, I've been hearing that it's actually, as far as lethality, it's not particularly a lethal virus.
Right.
You know, the people who have been looking at the actual numbers have been saying, yeah, this is,
it might be more contagious, but
but contagious and lethal. That's
right.
the thing people kind of conflate, and I have a friend who felt that way too.
The more contagious it is, the more cases there are. The ratio of that over death means that like what's the abbreviation? The morbid something rate, the CVR or what is it?
I don't know.
Number of people who die from who's infected is like a percentage. It's like, it's like 0.002. That number gets lower the more cases there are relative to the deaths.
So, yeah, I mean,
interesting.
When we probably had less cases reported, it looked worse. But as more and more cases, and that we find that it does get out and get an infection out into the population, a great majority of the people that are getting infected, a lot of them are asymptomatic, and when they do get symptoms, they're fairly light. The people that hit the hardest are elderly people with at least 2 or more comorbidity problems and other health issues.
Well, yeah, that's the thing is when they're reporting how many people have died from coronavirus, is it really they've died from it or they died and happened to have it? Because if someone has coronavirus and they get hit by a bus, you're not going to say that they died of coronavirus. You know what I mean? And so I think that was the case in Italy where a lot of the numbers, if it's like 800 people or whatever died of coronavirus, all of them but like 20 had some pre-existing condition like stage 4 pancreatic cancer or something. And it's like, okay, well, how are they reporting those numbers? Because if it's like, how can you really determine what the cause of death was? And if it's something that naturally makes your immune system weaker, well, they would have died if they got regular pneumonia or if they got the flu too. It wasn't just
they looked at those
virus.
Italy numbers again, and I think they said about 12% were ones that died really from the virus. There was no other underlying factor.
Yeah.
Chris, it's interesting because you kind of called that over a month ago when you were looking and everybody was freaking out about Italy. You're saying, well, it's in a region that has heavy population, everybody's smokers, and you said one of the big things that the media then got into later, finally talking about, is that they have a very aged population. They have a lot of old people per capita in that country as opposed to other countries.
And smog as bad as China. So
exactly.
They already have respiratory diseases there.
Right.
So,
and there's a lot of Chinese investment
more than other areas, just because of the climate, the atmospheric conditions there.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a lot of Chinese investment in the northern part of Italy over the past 10 years, and there's been a lot of travel, obviously, going from that region over to China and back. And it started in the north, and then when the family members were going to visit their family in the south, they brought it to the south. But originally, it was central around the northern area. I don't know if it's from the business relationships at that point.
Oh yeah, it definitely is. I mean, the fact is, they said Lombardy, which is kind of, I think, where the epicenter was, the kind of the province or part of Italy, they call it the China of Europe because their smog problems are as bad as China's, and that's saying a lot.
Yeah.
Well, you know what else I thought of too is this supposed like, oh, it's going to take 18 months of this until it's finally over. Well, like, wasn't China's been like, they're a few weeks ahead of us in terms of the quarantine, and their numbers are already like, they've already hit their peak. They're recovering, like, it's better. So how can you, I don't know, like, look at China and see that, like, okay, after, 6 or 8 weeks of doing this and the numbers are getting better, how do you get 18 months from that? I don't know. How can you really, if it hasn't even been around as long as 18 months, how can you predict this? I don't know. It just is. Yeah,
I think they're tying that to the virus, or the vaccine that'll be available hopefully by 18 months. But why does a vaccine? Why does it take so long to develop a vaccine for this when every year they come out with a new flu vaccine? Especially wasn't there something like about how something that cures malaria is able to cure this too? Oh, the hydrochloroquine.
Something like that.
Which has been nearly 99% effective. Anybody who's taken it?
I've taken it.
Have you?
Years ago. I took the one that they're talking about now is the synthetic version of the original, which is called quinine.
Quinine, yeah.
It's given a lot to the military when they're in other countries and they for defense against malaria. But it's also given for other reasons, pain, restless leg syndrome, which is why they gave it to me. So, and it was just I couldn't tolerate it. They had to take me off of it because it does things to your brain. At least not to everyone, obviously, but it affects your brain. So you just have to be careful.
Yeah.
Work with your doctor on that if you're going to take this stuff.
Absolutely. I mean, all of this is dependent on your doctor prescribing it, but I mean, it's FDA approved already. So
yeah,
but
go ahead.
I was just going to say, it seems like the people who are coming out against this are heavily in favor of vaccines. And that's why all of a sudden you started to see Bill Gates surface. You never see him. Now he's talking about this and he's pushing for vaccines. I mean, the Gates organization is big time vaccine pushers. And Fauci actually works for the Gates organization or has some sort of consultative role there. So I don't know. Now we're starting to get into your territory, Jerry. You're the CCC.
Well, I think you actually brought up that connection and you were more aware of it than I was. But I mean, I definitely have been hearing about how this particular malaria drug can be effective, and people have had it work for them. I'm just saying, I've also heard from a friend who was saying that they were doing mega dosing of vitamin C with certain patients to help.
Yeah.
I'm saying, if you have tools in your toolbox that are at your disposal, use them. I mean, again, you up to the doctor to decide what's the best course of action, but to have people that are public health officials at the top saying, no, don't even, it's not even worth looking into. That's the problem I have with that. I mean, the thing is, you may have your disagreements or your whatever about this, and you may have your own particular viewpoint on how treatment of this should go forward, but if the doctors decide, on a more local level, decide this is what they want to do, then I see there should be anybody poo-pooing that.
Yeah.
Let them decide.
Yeah.
I hate how I don't know, the politicization it is kind of is the priority ahead of what's the medically right thing to do. I don't know. I don't like when things are politicized that it's inappropriate to do so.
I think in order to get this country back on its footing, we have to have a combination of medical so-called experts, whatever panel you have of medical experts giving their advice, and you also have somebody viewing the economy, the economic side of this. I think you have to have both viewpoints. Because they're very much at odds right now. Economists want to do what they want, but then there's got to be a consideration for the risks of doing that. But then on the other side, the laboratory feel is like, oh no, you got to continue what we're doing to wipe it out. It's like, well, you can't do that for 18 months. So how do you bring the country back online? I think that's what we're going to start to see now, starting this next week. Because I think there's supposed to be some sort of a second advisory council put together with the meeting of the minds on both sides that are going to come together and start to come up with a plan. What's the end game for this? And that's what I'm looking forward to in this coming week, is to learn more about that.
Well, and you hope that it's not just this constant, okay, here's the date. Oh, we're going to push it back more. Okay, we get to that date. We're going to push it back more. Because the more you do that, the more it's like it eliminates the urgency. And it's kind of the boy who cried wolf. It's like, okay, well, people are going to do what they want.
Yeah.
The more you keep pushing it back.
People are not going to tolerate that every 2 weeks to be extended again. So Illinois is back still on for April 30th. Haven't heard anything. We still have probably a couple weeks before we're going to hear it again.
But Chicago's mayor got a haircut, so it's clearly not urgent.
Oh yeah,
it's not
exactly. So here
I want to hear about this one.
Okay, so I got this article here about Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot defends herself, defends getting a haircut among the outbreak. She says that the stylist wore a mask. Okay, so here we go.
By the way,
I saw a picture of the two of them, by the way, and like next to each other, and she wasn't wearing a mask.
By the way, well, it's too bad it didn't turn out to be a good haircut.
I don't think she needs a haircut. Anyway, so it says Mayor Lori Lightfoot defended getting a haircut over the weekend, even though barbers and stylists were shut down under the state's stay-at-home order, saying she's the face of the city, and the woman who cut her hair wore a mask. Asked about the photos on social media showing her with a stylist, Lightfoot, acknowledged getting a haircut, then said the public cares more about other issues. I think what really people really want to talk about is we're talking about people dying here.
The classic change the
Divert
subject.
the attention over here. Look
Yeah.
over here. We're talking about the significant health disparities. I think that's what people want to care most about. In response to a follow-up question, she said, "The woman who cut my hair had a mask and gloves, and so we were practicing what I'm preaching." Then a reporter asked
And stood 6 feet away.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
Right.
Those are some
cutting shears.
Yeah, I'd like to see those scissors.
It's a long brush. Long scissors.
A reporter asked the mayor about one of her stay home saves lives public service announcement, where Lightfoot admonishes an off-screen person by saying, "Getting your roots done is not essential." Asked about that, a visibly annoyed Lightfoot said, "I'm the public face of the city. I'm on national media and I'm out in the public eye. I'm a person who I take my personal hygiene very seriously. As I said, I felt I needed to have a haircut. I'm not able to do that myself, so I got a haircut." You want to talk more about that? It's a very defensive.
Yeah.
And then
it reminds me of that old bit. Who was it, Jerry, on SCTV? Was it Martin Short?
Yeah, it's Martin Short, and he always had that cigarette in his mouth, and
with the
very
cigarette.
nervous
He
twitch.
was like, I'm not nervous. You're the one that's nervous. I'm not being defensive. You're the one being defensive.
Exactly. That perfect character. Perfect.
That's what that reminds me of.
Well, I'm watching Governor Pritzker. I want to see what he looks like when he gets on camera at the end of the month, either extending our lockdown or saying it's over. Because if he has, I know what he looks like.
Perfectly coiffed hair.
Yeah. He said, I'm going to look at it. He said he stopped cutting. He hasn't had a trim since the stay-at-home order. He says, I'm going to look like a hippie at some point. So we're going to see.
Well, I heard him say he's using an electronic thing on himself or something. I heard him say that.
Yeah, because there's people giving themselves haircuts, or hey, you got a at-home haircut.
That's right.
My mom cut his hair.
Yeah, I had her cut my hair a little bit last week.
Mm-hmm. Hey, personally, I say let your freak flag fly, man.
Yeah, you're letting your hair grow out.
Yeah. Whatever I have left, that is, of course.
So I work for Nielsen. We track retail measurement, retail sales of products, and it's just interesting to see the products that are doing well, and those who are not. And
that's what I like to know.
And actually, just more anecdotally, just walking through the stores, I've noticed certain categories that are just sitting on the shelves. And we talked about this earlier, that you go down the bottled water aisle, and people left the Aquafina behind. It's like, even during the apocalypse, no Aquafina, no Dasani.
No, well, it's just filtered water.
Exactly.
At home.
So here are the top seller, bottom, not selling. These are the ones that are left behind in the grocery store. Literally left behind. Shrimp flavored ramen noodles. Hummus is a big left behind product.
That's a perfect sort of quarantine food. I don't understand that.
Carrot spirals.
Carrot spirals?
Spirals.
Like corkscrew carrots?
I guess so.
Never seen those.
Now this one I've personally validated. I went for a frozen pizza. Everything was cleared out except the cauliflower crust pizzas. And that goes with the mac and cheese.
People are like, I'll just, I'll take COVID-19 over this. I'll starve if it means that.
Yeah, the mac and cheese, the cauliflower-based mac and cheese, not a big seller.
No.
Pineapple pizza.
Well, that didn't make sense.
Vegan food.
All right, I knew we were going to come to this.
So you're okay, Jerry. You've got nothing to worry about.
I'm good.
You've got your selections.
But I will say this in defense of vegan food. It's not as cheap as the other food, especially the fake meats. If I were to get like those Beyond Meat burgers, you get two.
Yeah.
$6 for two of them.
Okay.
Who's going to pay $6 for two fake meat patties?
Yeah.
When they can get the ground meat patties,
right,
or ground beefs themselves for like a fraction of that price? Because people now are looking at their budgets because some don't know if they're going to be furloughed or they don't know what's going to happen in the future.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody's thinking very tightly with their wallet. So unfortunately, vegan convenience foods are expensive options. So that automatically kind of takes them out. But then again, I know there's some people who, even in the apocalypse, it's like, I ain't eating that garbage.
Yeah. Well, I guess if you're also on a budget during this time frame, you're gonna opt for something a little bit that's gonna stretch.
Right. That's why you see a lot of rice, potatoes. Those are all gone. Those are off the shelves. All those sweet potatoes are left behind. No one's touching those.
I don't like sweet potatoes either, so I understand that.
Interesting observation in Boston. You go down the soup aisle, Manhattan clam chowder is left behind. They're big on their Boston. They're
that's right.
New England clam chowder.
New England clam chowder all the way.
You know what else is funny isn't it? Well, I don't want to step on your toes, but in the beer aisle, isn't it? Go ahead.
That's my next one. Believe it or not, Corona beer left behind. I think
I heard
we got a segment of the population that's really stupid enough to really think that it's the Corona beer that's doing it.
I'd actually heard of statistics that they did amongst beer drinkers, a beer drinker statistics saying that they did the survey, and they said 38% of American beer drinkers are avoiding the Corona beer save themselves from getting the virus.
Yes.
Is it that, or is it, I don't want to constantly, every time I go to grab my beer, I don't want to be reminded by, is it maybe just trying to quarantine themselves from the idea? I don't know. Well, or maybe I'm just giving them the benefit of the doubt and they really are stupid.
Yeah, I think you're giving the benefit.
So here's some actual data here. This is Nielsen data of percent change versus year ago. So we're looking at a comparative week ending of end of March versus last year to compare the sales. And other products that are down: perfume down 20%, sunscreen down 17%. No vacations.
Well, actually,
spring break.
Back to the perfume thing, that makes sense because if it's like, I'm not seeing anybody, I don't need to smell good.
Yeah. Like vegetable party planners, not a lot of parties going on.
Right.
Down 17%. Pet toys.
Oh, that's
down 6%. Now that's relatively flat, not a big deal. But let's talk about it on the upside, data wise. Paper towels up 154%.
Surprising.
Yeah.
Antiseptic up 200%. Hand sanitizer 208%. Hydrogen peroxide 212. Toilet paper, here we go, up 213%. Bath and shower wipes. People are still bathing, up 222%.
Or they're using the shower wipes as toilet paper. Maybe
they're running out.
Yeah, but you can't flush that.
No.
That's true. Dried beans.
Yeah, you should.
Beans, first edible that's on here, up 231%. Multi-purpose cleaners, powdered milk products, rubbing alcohol, fresh meat alternatives. Here we go. Now we're getting into some serious territory. Oat milk up 477%.
What's so special about oat milk? Because if we go back to, that's more expensive than regular milk.
And it's vegan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thermometers, 500%. Of course, that's kind of that's a weird one because it's probably had a low base to begin with. How many thermometers are sold?
Right, because
people
usually buy one and then they're good for 10 years.
If Walgreens sold 10 and all of a sudden they sold 50, you've got your 500% increase.
Well, and also, do people not already have thermometers at home? Maybe it's everybody wants their own personal one in a household?
Yeah, maybe.
Actually, I don't have one right now, so.
And the number one product category is aerosol disinfectants, 519%.
You know what I think is ironic, though, is the demand for hand sanitizer, which is an antibacterial, and it's a virus that we're trying to fight. So technically, if you had any sort of contamination, I don't think hand sanitizer would get rid of it. Unless I mean, it's not antiviral, so I don't know about that one. Well, and then also the hoarding of toilet paper. Is it really that just personally, we've when we see toilet paper on the shelves, we think, oh my gosh, I don't know when we're going to see that again because it's out all the time. So we better get it now. And so I think that that's the mindset everyone's in. I don't think it's really, oh my gosh, I'm going to poop more. I need to get more toilet paper. I think it's, because at first it was man, why is toilet paper the thing that's going? It's not, it doesn't give you diarrhea, But I think it is this idea that, if it's scarce from the beginning, then everybody is trying to get it now so that because they don't want to be out of it. I don't know. It's just weird.
Wasn't there a lot of talk though about the possibility of the stay in place before it happened for a couple of weeks? So people were starting to think, wow, this is going to happen.
Yes.
I better get some now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Those first couple of weeks, everybody was rushing to the grocery store to stock up.
Yeah. Just in case. And then it happened.
And then I think it started to flatten out because the rush wasn't all happening at once. And now stores can replenish and keep shelves stocked a little better.
Somewhere I also heard
at least they...
Go ahead.
I said, well, at least they flattened that curve.
Yeah.
Somewhere I also heard, though, that I think China had run out of a lot of supplies because they weren't really prepared for this, and they were the first ones that were really hit by this. And I had heard other people talking about that, a lot of these families, or a lot of people who had family in China were sending those, paper towel, toilet paper products overseas because they're out of supplies. So I think that was the initial that contributed to the scarcity of it.
Yeah. Well, that was
uplifting.
This was a different episode.
I was saying that's a thumbs up for American manufacturing. We had all that extra toilet paper and paper towels made in America, and the Chinese needed that.
I think Dave just left.
Yeah.
Dave just left the building.
Dave has left the building.
I'm just sick of all this. No, but I had some interesting observations I wanted to make just in day-to-day life.
Yeah, why don't you do that and then we'll close out because I think we've been going well over an hour now, I think.
Has it been? Oh,
yeah, we'll do another one of these again very soon. I think this is good. But no, go ahead.
Yeah, you need a follow-up. But
closing segment.
All right. Well, my thing is, one thing I noticed while walking around my neighborhood, now you may be different where you're at because you're more rural and in the country sort of thing. But Larry, living here in the city, one thing you're noticing is that the animals are definitely getting a bit more confident. They're not scurrying away as much. And one thing I'm also, I remember the other day when I was doing a walk, actually yesterday I think it was, and I ran into the squirrel, and the squirrel's looking at me, and I'm looking at it, and it didn't run away. It just kind of just looked at me like, oh yeah. It was almost like, I don't know. There's the animals are getting more confident. The humans aren't out.
Well, you heard Baba's segment earlier about the animals taking over in India.
And the other thing I've been noticing is, we're going to talk about that. But the other thing I noticed too in doing these walks, my exercise walks that I'm allowed, is that I'm hearing more bird song. What I mean is I'm hearing the birds morning, during the day, and at night. I could be walking around 8 o'clock at night, and I'm hearing them singing and whatever they chirping like loudly. You know, because certain times of day you hear them more, and then you hear them less, or at least kind of perceived, at least in the city. But a lot of that I think has to do with less ambient noise. But I could swear that the birds are actually doing more singing now than they have when we the humans are out running around.
We the humans. That totally makes sense though, because we're at the top of the food chain. So if the number one predator can't go outside and they're locked out, I mean, like it's like if all the coyotes just disappeared, rabbits would get a lot more confident. They'd be scurrying around.
They've got free reign of the earth now without us out there, causing trouble.
Yeah, I've been noticing more confident rabbits too, actually.
Oh yeah. Well, this is their time of year anyway to be more confident.
Yeah, spring, bunnies, Easter, the Easter egg and the Easter.
That's
bunny.
right.
I wonder where Dave went.
No, Dave's back.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I'm here.
Oh, I'm here. All right.
Any closing comments from you, Dave?
Like I said, I've just been trying to use this time to dispel as much fear as possible when I run into people at the store. A lot of people are really just looking for some sort of contact, so somebody has to initiate that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like
I've been trying to push myself a little more than usual. And it's been successful a lot of the time.
You can still smile and give a wave 6 feet away. It doesn't, it's not like we have to eliminate all human interaction.
Yeah.
And then, some people are just going to give you that look like, oh, are you going to give it to me?
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Then there's nothing you can do about that. You just move on.
Well, I had the option last night. I ordered some food for delivery. And you have the option now on DoorDash to either just leave it on the doorstep or to have them hand it to you. And at first I was kind of torn about the option. It's like, I'm not afraid to come in contact with somebody, but I don't know if it's a problem for them. Maybe they want to leave it, but I chose not to have them just leave it at the door, to actually hand it to me. And I answered it. I thanked them very much for their service, gave them a good tip, had that interaction. I felt weird about, no, just leave it on my doorstep and send me a text message when it's there.
The maid will get it.
Yeah, it's like, I'm not afraid to open my door. And I hope we don't get to that point.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, and it's a lot of the whole social distancing concept is not necessarily, like, I personally am not really afraid to get it because you hear about all these great recovery stories. But I think the concept is, you could be carrying it and then you give it to someone who's more vulnerable to it, like, the elderly or whatever. And in that case, it's like, I get that, but you're right. It is that, like, that, I don't want to feel like we're not even able to have those moments of humanity and connection anymore. Yeah.
Make sure you don't lose that.
Right.
Because, there are people that just have things, they just want to say something to somebody. And sometimes it's easier to do that with a stranger. Like one guy was saying how, I lost 10 years on my 401k because of this. And I'm back where I was 10 years ago. And people just want to connect in any way possible.
Yeah.
Besides virtually, in person.
Yeah. I'm at least glad
to get it off the. Yeah.
I'm at least.
I'm sorry. I was talking over you.
No, I was just going to say, it's great that we've got this technology at least to keep us together. And I think a lot of people are connecting more than they have before. At least on this medium. But
Chris, I had a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Because where you live in kind of a more suburban environment, so you have the houses. I mean, you see your neighbors. Where I live in the city, I'm in an apartment building, so you get a little more cut off because people are in their apartments and has this affected your interaction with your neighbors, like your next door neighbors?
What interaction?
I didn't have any interaction before.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't know how close.
I don't really socialize with my neighbors.
What's funny though is we have seen like social distance block parties down the street where like everyone's got a beer in hand and they have their chairs like in a circle all 6 feet apart and the kids are like talking to each other across the street.
Yeah, it's like summer vacation began early. I'm seeing a lot of kids running around all day long. They're not studying.
Yeah.
They're going to have a hard time going back to school this fall.
Are they though? I wonder. Are they going to miss the structure in a day? I don't know.
I think it's kind of cool at first.
Right, that's what I mean.
For a couple of
by
weeks,
the time come fall, I wonder if
I think they're going to be eager to get back. I think.
I always liked
sure.
going back to school just because, like, I get to see friends and I get to meet a new teacher and get
Socialize.
to, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Play sports again.
Yeah, all the events that
that-
got canceled.
I just feel bad that you were deprived of your college graduation walk.
Well, I haven't been deprived of. So my graduation, my commencement ceremony is supposed to be May 3rd, which is still on, but like a webcast one. So they're going to be, you get to choose a professor to read your name and they'll have a picture of you on the screen. It's like, invite all of your family to tune in this representation of the commencement ceremony. But their intention is to actually hold a real in-person ceremony later in the year. Best case scenario, August. Worst case scenario, December. So better late than never.
Yeah, you'll get one.
I'm not, there's an option to have a refund on your cap and gown until like they give us more information, but it's like, I already paid for it. When it gets here, even if I don't get a ceremony, I'll take pictures wearing it, outside somewhere.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for calling in. I think, if anything, this has allowed us to test out this new technology so that we can do some more frequent shows instead of having to arrange to have you come out for the weekend, which might be like twice a year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's just true. That certainly makes things more convenient.
Yeah, I think this will work.
I still prefer the in-person, but
Yeah.
this is a
Yeah,
nice
absolutely.
second choice. Yeah.
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 Yeah, we can't clink coffee mugs right now.
This will do it for a while. But yeah, we'll get back together again. Hopefully, yeah. I didn't bring my beverage of choice this time. Next time. All right, guys. Thanks for calling in, and we'll be back again on another episode of the SmorgShow Podcast. All righty. Well, this was an unusual episode, but magic of technology allowed us to continue on. Thank you, Dave Jackson. Thank you, Jerry Malauskas. And thank you, my daughter, Allie, for joining us on episode 114 of the SmorgShow Podcast. I don't know when we'll be back next, but I think we're going to have a lot of time on our hands to crank out a few episodes while we're in lockdown. More to come. Thanks for joining us. Stay safe and stay happy. We've got a lot to be happy for in this country. Take care.